The black Mercedes pulled up to the Goldman Sachs building at exactly 6:47 a.m. 3 minutes early. Just how I liked it. I slid into the back seat without looking up from my phone. Same routine, every morning for the past 8 months. Harper held the door, waited for me to settle, then closed it with that perfect professional click. "Good morning, Ms. Crane." Her voice came through the partition. "Morning," I replied, not lifting my eyes from the quarterly reports. But here's what I didn't tell her. I'd been awake since 4 a.m. Not because of work stress, but because I kept replaying yesterday's conversation. The way she'd laughed when I mentioned my terrible coffee-making skills. How her eyes crinkled at the corners. God, I was pathetic. The car pulled into traffic, and I caught her reflection in the rearview mirror. Dark hair pulled back in that low ponytail. Aviator sunglasses hiding those impossibly green eyes. Professional. Untouchable. Everything I should be. My phone buzzed. Another merger falling through. Perfect. "Rough morning already?" Harper's voice cut through my spiral. I looked up, startled. She was watching me in the mirror, and for a split second, I forgot how to breathe. "Just business," I said, my voice coming out sharper than intended. She nodded and looked away, back to being that safe distance I'd carefully maintained between us. The thing is, Harper Vance wasn't supposed to matter. She was hired through the company's executive transport service, professional references, clean background check, 0 complications, except everything about her was a complication. The way she remembered I liked my coffee black, but always kept cream in the car, just in case. How she'd adjusted the seat temperature without me asking after noticing I'd shivered once. The fact that she read actual books instead of scrolling through her phone during my meetings. "Ms. Crane?" Her voice snapped me back to reality. "Yes, we're here." I looked out the window. The Meridian Capitol building loomed above us. All glass and steel. My kingdom. My battlefield. Harper was already out of the car, moving around to open my door. I gathered my briefcase, straightened my blazer, and prepared to step back into my role as the Ice Queen of Wall Street, but as I stepped onto the sidewalk, my heel caught on a loose piece of concrete. I stumbled forward, and suddenly Harper's hand was on my elbow, steadying me. "Careful," she said softly. For a moment, we were standing too close. I could smell her perfume, something clean and warm that made my head spin. Her hand was still on my arm, and I could feel the heat of her fingers through my blazer. "Thank you," I whispered. Our eyes met, and something passed between us, something dangerous and electric and completely inappropriate. Then reality crashed back. I was Alyssa Crane. I didn't stumble. I didn't need saving, and I definitely didn't get flustered by my employee's touch. I stepped back, rebuilding my walls in real time. "I'll be ready at 6, I said. My voice back to its usual ice. "Of course, Miss Crane." I walked toward the building, feeling her eyes on my back. In the reflection of the glass doors, I saw her watching me until I disappeared inside. The elevator ride to the 42nd floor gave me time to compose myself. By the time the doors opened, I was back to being the woman who'd closed 3 major deals last week and made grown men cry in negotiations. But as I settled into my corner office, I couldn't stop thinking about the warmth of Harper's hand on my arm. My assistant, Marcus, appeared in my doorway with his usual stack of files and worried expression. "The Morrison account is threatening to pull out," he announced without preamble. "Let them," I said, not looking up from my computer. "Their loss. Alyssa, they represent $12 million in annual revenue." I finally looked at him. Marcus had been with me for 3 years. He'd seen me negotiate hostile takeovers without blinking. He'd watched me fire entire departments without losing sleep. But right now, he looked genuinely concerned. "Set up a meeting," I said. "This afternoon." He nodded and started to leave, then paused. "Everything okay? You seem distracted?" Distracted. If only he knew. "I'm fine, Marcus. Just thinking about the Hartwell acquisition." It wasn't entirely a lie. I was thinking about acquisitions. Just not the kind that belonged in a boardroom. The morning flew by in a blur of conference calls and contract reviews. But every time I glanced out my window at the street below, I found myself looking for a familiar black Mercedes. At 11:30, my phone buzzed with a text. "Harper." Traffic's heavy on 5th. Might be 5 minutes late for your lunch pickup. I stared at the message longer than necessary. She didn't have to text me. The company protocol was to call Marcus if there were delays, but she'd texted me directly. Me. No problem. I typed and deleted 3 different responses before settling on those 2 words. Professional? Safe. But my heart was racing like I'd just closed the deal of the century. The Morrison meeting went better than expected. By 4 p.m., I'd not only saved the account, but negotiated a 15% increase in their investment portfolio. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I felt restless. At 5:45, I gathered my things and headed downstairs. Harper was waiting by the car, scrolling through her phone. When she saw me approaching, she quickly put it away and opened the rear door. "How was your day?" she asked as we pulled into traffic. It was such a simple question, the kind of thing people asked each other every day. But coming from her, it felt like so much more. "Productive," I said. "Yours?" "Can't complain." Though I did have to explain to a parking attendant why I was sitting in a no parking zone for 2 hours. I found myself smiling. "What did you tell him?" "That my boss was scarier than any ticket he could write." I laughed. Actually laughed. And caught her grinning in the rearview mirror. "Am I really that terrifying?" "Absolutely," she said without hesitation. "But in a good way." The rest of the drive passed in comfortable conversation. Harper told me about the book she was reading. Some thriller about art forgery. I found myself sharing details about the Morrison deal. Something I never did with employees. When we pulled up to my building, I didn't immediately get out. "Harper?" "Yes?" "Thank you. For today, for everything." She turned in her seat to look at me directly. "Just doing my job, Ms. Crane." But the way she said it, the softness in her voice, suggested it was more than that. I got out of the car and walked toward my building, but I could feel her watching me again. At the entrance, I turned back. She was still there, still watching. And for the first time in months, I let myself wonder what would happen if I stopped pretending I didn't notice. The next morning started like any other, except I'd changed my blazer 3 times and checked my reflection twice before heading downstairs. Pathetic didn't even begin to cover it. Harper was waiting by the car, wearing dark jeans and a fitted black jacket that made my mouth go dry. She looked up as I approached, and I caught something in her expression. A flicker of awareness that hadn't been there before. "Morning," she said, opening the door. "Good morning." I settled into the back seat, hyper-aware of every movement, the way she adjusted the rearview mirror. How her fingers drummed against the steering wheel at red lights. The soft humming under her breath that I'd never noticed before. Or maybe I had noticed. Maybe I'd been cataloging these details for months without admitting it to myself. "Late night?" Harper asked, glancing at me in the mirror. I'd been up until 2 a.m., but not because of work. I'd been thinking about yesterday's conversation. About the way she'd smiled when I laughed. "Conference call with Tokyo," I lied smoothly. "Brutal. I don't know how you do it." "Practice," I said, then found myself adding, "and really good coffee. Speaking of which," she reached into the center console and pulled out a travel mug. "Thought you might need this." She handed it back to me, and our fingers brushed as I took it, just for a second. Just skin against skin, but it was enough to send electricity shooting up my arm. "Thank you," I managed, hoping my voice sounded normal. The coffee was perfect. Black, strong, exactly how I liked it. But more than that, it was thoughtful. Personal. The kind of gesture that crossed the line between professional and something else entirely. "How did you know I'd need this?" I asked. "Lucky guess," she said. But I caught her smile in the mirror. The morning flew by in a haze of meetings and phone calls, but every sip of that coffee reminded me of Harper's fingers against mine. Of the way she'd anticipated what I needed before I even knew I needed it. By lunch, I was a mess. "You're distracted again," Marcus observed, setting a stack of contracts on my desk. "I'm fine. You've been staring at that coffee cup for 10 minutes. I looked down. He was right. I'd been turning the empty travel mug in my hands like it held the secrets of the universe. "It's nothing," I said, shoving it into my desk drawer. But it wasn't nothing. It was everything. At 6 p.m. I headed downstairs with a strange mix of anticipation and dread. Harper was leaning against the car, talking on her phone. When she saw me, she quickly ended the call. "Sorry about that," she said, opening the door. Personal call? Something like that. There was something different in her tone. Distant, like she was pulling back just when I was starting to lean in. The drive to my apartment was quieter than usual. No easy conversation, no shared smiles in the mirror. Just the hum of traffic and the weight of unspoken words. When we stopped at a red light, I found myself studying her profile. The strong line of her jaw. The way she bit her lower lip when she was thinking. The small scar above her left eyebrow that I'd never noticed before. Ms. Crane? I realized I'd been staring. Yes? The light's green. Heat flooded my cheeks. Right. Sorry, but she didn't move the car. Instead, she turned to look at me directly. Are you okay? You seem... I'm fine, I said quickly. Because if something's wrong, if I've done something, you haven't done anything wrong. The words came out sharper than I intended. Harper's expression shuddered, and she turned back to the road. The rest of the drive passed in uncomfortable silence. When we pulled up to my building, I didn't immediately get out. I sat there, knowing I should say something, knowing I'd hurt her feelings, but not knowing how to fix it without revealing too much. Harper. Have a good evening, Ms. Crane. Her voice was perfectly professional. Perfectly cold. Everything I'd taught her to be. I got out of the car and walked toward my building, feeling like I'd just lost something important without ever really having it. But as I reached for the door handle, I heard footsteps behind me. Ms. Crane, wait. I turned. Harper was standing a few feet away, her hands shoved deep in her jacket pockets. I'm sorry if I overstepped, she said. The coffee thing, asking personal questions. I know you value your privacy and You didn't overstep. The words tumbled out before I could stop them. Then what's wrong? Because something's been different since yesterday and I can't figure out what I did. She looked genuinely confused, genuinely hurt, and I realized that my attempts to maintain professional distance were coming across as rejection. You didn't do anything wrong, I said again. Softer this time. Then what? I stared at her, standing there in the glow of the streetlight, looking beautiful and concerned and completely unaware of the effect she had on me. It's complicated, I said finally. Try me. For a moment, I considered telling her everything, about the sleepless nights, about the way my heart raced every time she smiled, about how she'd become the best part of my day without even trying. Instead, I said, I should go. Disappointment flashed across her face, but she nodded. Of course. I'll see you tomorrow. She started to walk back to the car, but something in me snapped. Harper! She stopped, turned. The coffee was perfect. Thank you. A small smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. You're welcome. I watched her drive away, then stood on the sidewalk for a long time, wondering when I'd become such a coward. Upstairs in my apartment, I poured myself a glass of wine and tried to focus on the quarterly reports spread across my dining table. But my mind kept wandering back to the moment our fingers had touched, to the way Harper had looked at me when she asked what was wrong, to the fact that I was falling for my driver and had absolutely no idea what to do about it. My phone buzzed with a text. Harper. Forgot to mention, I'll be a few minutes late tomorrow morning. Car's due for maintenance. I stared at the message, then typed back. No problem. Thank you for letting me know. But what I wanted to say was, I miss you already. What I wanted to say was, come back. What I wanted to say was, I think I'm falling in love with you, and it's terrifying. Instead, I finished my wine, took a long shower, and went to bed. But I didn't sleep. I lay there thinking about green eyes and gentle smiles and the way Harper's voice sounded when she said my name. And I wondered if she was thinking about me too. I woke up at 5 a.m. to the sound of rain against my windows. Perfect. The weather matched my mood. Gray, unsettled, and completely unpredictable. Harper was 10 minutes late, just as she'd warned. When I slid into the back seat, she was apologizing before I'd even closed the door. Sorry, Ms. Crane. The maintenance took longer than expected. It's fine, I said, but I was studying her in the mirror. She looked tired, stressed, like she'd slept about as well as I had. Everything okay? I found myself asking. Just car trouble. Nothing major. But there was something in her voice, something off. The drive to the office was quiet, filled with the steady rhythm of rain on the roof and the swish of windshield wipers. I tried to focus on my emails, but I kept glancing up at Harper's reflection. She was gripping the steering wheel tighter than usual. Her jaw was set in a way that suggested she was thinking about something unpleasant. "Harper? Yes? Are you sure you're okay?" She met my eyes in the mirror, and for a moment, I saw something vulnerable there, something that made my chest tighten. "I'm fine," she said, "just tired." I wanted to push, wanted to ask what was really wrong. But we pulled up to my building before I could find the courage. "I'll see you at 6, I said as I got out. "Actually," Harper said, rolling down the window, "I might need to leave a few minutes early today, personal appointment." "Of course. Just let Marcus know when you need to go." She nodded but didn't meet my eyes. I spent the morning in back-to-back meetings, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Harper had seemed distant, distracted, like her mind was somewhere else entirely. At lunch, I found myself checking my phone more often than usual. No messages from Harper. No updates about pickup times or traffic delays. By 3 p.m., I was worried enough to text her. "Me. Everything okay?" The response came back immediately. "Harper. All good. See you at 5:45. Professional, impersonal." Nothing like the easy warmth we'd been building toward. I tried to focus on work, but my mind kept wandering. Had I done something wrong? Said something that upset her? Or was this about whatever personal appointment she had to leave early for? At 5:30, Marcus knocked on my door. "Your driver called. She's running about 15 minutes behind." Did she say why? Just that she'd be there as soon as possible. I nodded, but anxiety was building in my chest. Harper was never late without a detailed explanation. Never vague about timing. Something was definitely wrong. At 6:05, I finally saw the familiar black Mercedes pull up outside. I gathered my things and headed downstairs, rehearsing what I'd say. How I'd ask if she was okay without sounding like I was overstepping. But when I got to the car, Harper barely looked at me. "Sorry I'm late," she said, opening the door. "No problem. Traffic was brutal." She closed the door before I could finish my question. The drive home was tense. Harper kept checking her phone at red lights, her fingers drumming against the steering wheel in an agitated rhythm. When I tried to make conversation, her responses were clipped. Distracted. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. "Harper, what's going on?" "Nothing's going on. You've been acting strange all day." "If I did something..." "You didn't do anything." Her voice was sharp, defensive, like she was trying to end the conversation before it started. We pulled up to my building in silence. I sat in the back seat for a moment, trying to figure out how to bridge the sudden distance between us. "Harper. Have a good evening, Ms. Crane." The dismissal was clear. I got out of the car, feeling like I'd been slapped, but as I walked toward my building, I heard her car door slam, footsteps on the pavement. "Miss Crane, wait." I turned. Harper was standing by the car, her phone in her hand, looking like she was fighting some internal battle. "I'm sorry," she said. It's been a difficult day. Do you want to talk about it?" She looked at me for a long moment, then shook her head. "It's personal. I shouldn't have let it affect my work. I'm not asking as your employer," I said quietly. Something shifted in her expression. Surprise, maybe. Or hope. She started to say something, then stopped. Looked down at her phone. "I should go." "Harper." But she was already getting back in the car. I stood on the sidewalk watching her drive away, feeling more confused than ever. Upstairs, I poured myself a glass of wine and tried to make sense of the day. Harper's strange mood, her evasiveness, the way she'd looked at me like she wanted to say something but couldn't. I was halfway through my second glass when curiosity got the better of me. I pulled out my phone and opened Instagram. I'd never looked at Harper's social media before. It felt like crossing a line, but something about today made me desperate for answers. Her profile was mostly private, but her stories were public. I clicked on the little circle next to her name, my heart pounding for reasons I couldn't explain. The first story was from this morning, a photo of her car at the mechanic's shop with the caption, "When your baby needs TLC." The second was from lunch, a picture of a sandwich with the text, "Stress eating is still eating, right?" And then I saw it. The third story, posted just an hour ago, a video of Harper laughing with another woman, They were in what looked like a garage, both of them covered in grease, grinning at the camera. The other woman was beautiful, short blonde hair, bright smile, the kind of effortless confidence I'd never possessed. The caption read, "Best part of car trouble? Spending the day with this one." My phone slipped from my hands, clattering onto the hardwood floor. The sound echoed through my apartment like a gunshot. I stared at the cracked screen, my heart hammering against my ribs. The wine glass trembled in my other hand. Harper was with someone else. Of course she was. Beautiful, kind, funny Harper, who brought me perfect coffee and remembered how I liked my seat temperature. Why wouldn't she be with someone, and why did it feel like someone had just ripped my heart out of my chest? I picked up my phone with shaking hands, the video still playing on loop. Harper's laugh, the easy intimacy between them, the heart emoji that felt like a knife to my gut. I'd been an idiot, a complete delusional idiot. All those moments I thought we'd shared, the lingering looks, the gentle touches, the way she'd seemed to care about my day, they were just her being professional. Being kind to her difficult boss who was apparently developing an embarrassing crush. I closed Instagram and set my phone aside, but the image was burned into my memory. Harper's smile, the other woman's hand on her shoulder, the caption that made it clear this wasn't just friendship. I finished my wine in one gulp and poured another, then another. By the time I went to bed, I'd made a decision. Tomorrow things would go back to normal. Professional distance. No more personal conversations. No more wondering what if. Harper had her life, and I had mine. And never the two should meet. I woke up with a headache and a resolve that felt as fragile as spun glass. Professional distance. That was the plan. Harper arrived at exactly 6:47 a.m., same as always. But when she opened the car door, I didn't look up from my phone. "Good morning, Ms. Crane." "Morning." I kept my voice flat, businesslike. The way it should have been all along. The drive to the office was silent, except for the morning news playing softly through the speakers. I could feel Harper glancing at me in the rearview mirror, but I refused to meet her eyes. When we pulled up to my building, I was out of the car before she could come around to open the door. "I'll be ready at 6, I said without looking back. "Ms. Crane?" But I was already walking away. The morning passed in a blur of conference calls and contract reviews. I threw myself into work with the kind of intensity that had built my reputation. Cold, focused, untouchable. At lunch, Marcus appeared in my doorway with a concerned expression. "The Henderson account is asking for a meeting next week." "Fine. Set it up." "And your driver called. She wanted to confirm pickup time." My fingers tightened around my pen. 6 o'clock, same as always. She also asked if everything was okay. "Said you seemed upset this morning." I looked up sharply. "What did you tell her?" "That you were fine." "But, Alyssa," Marcus stepped into my office and closed the door. "Are you fine? Because you've been acting strange for weeks, and now you look like you haven't slept." "I'm perfectly fine." "Right. And I'm the Queen of England." I glared at him, but Marcus had been with me too long to be intimidated. "Talk to me," he said. "What's going on?" For a moment, I considered telling him everything. About Harper. About the feelings I'd been trying to ignore. About the Instagram story that had shattered my ridiculous fantasies. Instead, I said, "I need you to call the transport company. I want a different driver." Marcus blinked. "What? Why?" "Harper's been unprofessional." It was a lie, and we both knew it. Harper had been nothing but professional. It was me who'd been crossing lines, reading into things that weren't there. "Unprofessional how?" "Just call them, Marcus. Alyssa, Harper's been your driver for 8 months. She knows your schedule, your preferences. She's reliable, punctual." I said, "Call them." My voice came out sharper than intended. Marcus flinched, then nodded. "Fine. But they'll need a reason. Tell them I need someone with more experience." Another lie. Harper was the best driver I'd ever had. "I'll make the call," Marcus said quietly, then paused at the door. "For what it's worth, I think you're making a mistake." After he left, I sat in my office staring out at the city below, trying to convince myself I was doing the right thing. Professional distance, clean boundaries, no more complications. But all I could think about was Harper's smile. The way she'd brought me coffee yesterday morning. How she'd asked if I was okay with genuine concern in her voice. At 5:45, I gathered my things and headed downstairs, steeling myself for what might be our last conversation. Harper was waiting by the car, scrolling through her phone. When she saw me approaching, she quickly put it away and opened the rear door. "How was your day?" she asked as we pulled into traffic. I almost answered automatically, the way I had been for weeks. Then I remembered the Instagram story. The blonde woman. The heart emoji. "Fine," I said curtly. Harper glanced at me in the mirror. "Just fine?" "Yes." "The Morrison account went well?" I looked up sharply. "How do you know about Morrison? You mentioned it yesterday. Said you were nervous about the presentation." Had I said that? I couldn't remember. The past few weeks were a blur of shared conversations and stolen glances. "It went fine," I repeated. "That's good. I know how important it was to you." The kindness in her voice made my chest ache. This was exactly why I needed distance. Harper cared too much, noticed too much, made me want things I couldn't have. "Harper." "Yes?" "We need to discuss your punctuality." I saw her shoulders tense. "My punctuality? You've been late several times recently. Yesterday, this morning. I was 10 minutes late yesterday because of car maintenance. I texted you in advance, and this morning you were 3 minutes late." 3 minutes? Her voice rose slightly. "Ms. Crane, I've been your driver for 8 months. I've never been more than 5 minutes late, and only when I've given you advance notice. Professional standards exist for a reason." "Professional standards?" She pulled over to the curb and put the car in park, then turned to face me. "What is this really about? I don't know what you mean. Yesterday you were asking if I was okay. Today you won't even look at me. What changed?" "Everything," I wanted to say. "I saw your Instagram story. I saw you with her. I realized I've been living in a fantasy." "Nothing changed," I said instead. "I'm simply maintaining appropriate boundaries." "Appropriate boundaries." She repeated the words like they tasted bitter. "Right." She turned back around and pulled into traffic. But I could see the tension in her shoulders. The way her hands gripped the steering wheel. We drove the rest of the way in silence. When we pulled up to my building, I reached for the door handle, but Harper's voice stopped me. "Ms. Crane." I looked up reluctantly. "If I've done something to upset you, I'd appreciate you telling me directly, instead of hiding behind complaints about punctuality." Her green eyes were steady, challenging. Demanding honesty I wasn't prepared to give. "You haven't done anything wrong," I said. "Then what's this about?" I stared at her. This woman who'd somehow become the center of my universe without my permission. Who brought me coffee and asked about my day and made me feel less alone in the world. Who belonged to someone else. "It's about maintaining professional distance," I said finally. Something I should have done from the beginning. Pain flashed across Harper's face, quickly replaced by something harder. Professional distance. Got it. "Harper, will there be anything else, Ms. Crane?" The formality in her voice was like a slap. I'd gotten what I wanted. Distance, boundaries, professionalism. So why did it feel like I was losing something precious? "No," I said quietly. "That's all." I got out of the car and walked toward my building, feeling Harper's eyes on my back. At the entrance, I turned around. She was still sitting there watching me with an expression I couldn't read. For a moment, I considered going back. Apologizing. Telling her the truth about why I was pushing her away. Instead, I walked inside. Upstairs, I poured myself a glass of wine and tried to convince myself I'd done the right thing. Professional boundaries were important. Getting involved with employees was a disaster waiting to happen. But all I could think about was the hurt in Harper's eyes. The way her voice had gone cold when she'd called me Ms. Crane. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Marcus, transport company says they can have a new driver start Monday. You sure about this?" I stared at the message for a long time. Me? Yes, I'm sure. But as I hit send, I felt like I was making the biggest mistake of my life. Friday morning came with the kind of gray sky that matched my mood perfectly. I'd barely slept, tossing and turning while replaying yesterday's conversation with Harper. The hurt in her eyes, The way her voice had gone cold. The way I'd destroyed something beautiful because I was too much of a coward to face my feelings. Harper arrived at exactly 6:47 a.m. Not a minute early, not a minute late. Professional punctuality, just like I'd demanded. When I slid into the back seat, she didn't greet me. Didn't ask how I was. Just started the car and pulled into traffic. The silence was deafening. I tried to focus on my emails, but the words blurred together. All I could think about was how wrong this felt. How much I missed her voice, her laugh. The easy warmth that had been building between us. "Harper," I said finally. "Yes, Miss Crane." Even her tone was different, clipped, distant. Everything I'd asked for and nothing I actually wanted. "How's your car running? After the maintenance?" "Fine." One word. No elaboration. No invitation for further conversation. I deserved this. I knew I deserved this, but it still felt like a knife to the chest. The rest of the drive passed in uncomfortable silence. When we pulled up to my building, Harper didn't get out to open my door. Just sat there, hands on the steering wheel, staring straight ahead. "I'll be ready at 6, I said. "Actually," Harper said, still not looking at me, "this is my last day." My blood turned to ice. "What?" "I've been reassigned. Someone else will be picking you up on Monday." "Reassigned? By who?" Finally, she turned to look at me. Her green eyes were flat, empty. "By you, Miss Crane. Through your assistant." The words hit me like a physical blow. I'd forgotten about my request to Marcus. In my panic and hurt over the Instagram story, I'd asked for a different driver. "Harper, It's fine," she said, cutting me off. "Professional distance, right? This is probably for the best. Wait." But she was already getting out of the car to open my door. Professional to the end. I stumbled out onto the sidewalk, my mind reeling. This was my last day with Harper, and I'd wasted it in silence. In stupid, prideful silence. "Harper, please." "Have a good day, Ms. Crane." She was back in the car before I could say another word. I stood on the sidewalk, watching her drive away, feeling like I'd just made the biggest mistake of my life. The day passed in a haze. I couldn't focus on meetings. Couldn't concentrate on contracts. All I could think about was Harper's empty expression. The finality in her voice when she'd said goodbye. At lunch, Marcus appeared in my doorway with a stack of files and a concerned expression. "The new driver starts Monday," he said. "James Morrison. 20 years of experience, excellent references." I nodded absently. "Alyssa, are you sure about this?" Harper seemed really upset when I called the company. "It's done, Marcus." "But why?" "She was perfect for you. Reliable. Professional." I said it's done. Marcus studied my face for a long moment. "This isn't about her being unprofessional, is it?" I looked up sharply. "What's that supposed to mean?" "I've seen the way you look at her, the way you light up when she asks about your day." Heat flooded my cheeks. "That's ridiculous." "Is it?" "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're running away from something good because you're scared." "I'm not scared of anything." "Right. The woman who built a financial empire from nothing is scared of her feelings for her driver." The words hung in the air between us. I wanted to deny it, but what was the point? Marcus had always been too perceptive for his own good. "It doesn't matter," I said finally. "She's with someone else." "What? How do you know that?" I told him about the Instagram story, about the blonde woman and the heart emoji, and the caption that had shattered my ridiculous fantasies. Marcus listened without interrupting, then shook his head. "Alyssa, you're an idiot." "Excuse me?" "You saw one Instagram story and jumped to conclusions. Did you ask her about it? Did you consider that maybe this woman is just a friend?" The heart emoji could mean anything. You're reading into social media posts instead of having an actual conversation. I stared at him, feeling something crack open in my chest. It's too late now. I already requested a new driver, already pushed her away. It's only too late if you let it be. Before I could respond, Marcus was gone, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the growing realization that I'd been a complete fool. The afternoon dragged by. Every time I looked at the clock, I felt a fresh wave of panic. In a few hours, Harper would pick me up for the last time, and then she'd be gone. At 5:30, I couldn't take it anymore. I gathered my things and headed downstairs, my heart pounding like I was about to give the presentation of my life. Harper was waiting by the car, but something was different. She wasn't scrolling through her phone or checking her watch. She was just standing there, staring at the building entrance like she was waiting for something. When she saw me approaching, her expression didn't change. Still professional, still distant. "Ready?" she asked, opening the door. I got in, but as she started to close the door, I caught it with my hand. "Harper, wait." She paused, looking down at me with those green eyes that had haunted my dreams. "We need to talk," I said. "About what?" "About why I really asked for a new driver." Something flickered in her expression. "I thought it was about professional distance." It was. But not for the reasons you think. Harper glanced around the busy street, then got into the driver's seat. "What reasons?" This was it. The moment of truth. I could keep lying, keep hiding behind professional boundaries and wounded pride, or I could be honest for once in my life. "I saw your Instagram story," I said quietly. Harper frowned. "Which one?" "The one from yesterday, with the blonde woman, at the garage." Understanding dawned in her eyes, followed quickly by something that might have been amusement. "You mean Mel?" "I don't know her name. I just saw the heart emoji, the caption about spending the day with her." "And you assumed we were together?" It wasn't a question. Harper was staring at me with an expression I couldn't read. "Weren't you?" I asked, hating how small my voice sounded. Harper was quiet for a long moment. Then, to my complete shock, she started laughing. "Oh my God," she said, shaking her head. "You're jealous." "I'm not." "You are. You're actually jealous." She turned in her seat to face me fully. "Alyssa, Mel is my best friend. She's also happily married to her wife of 5 years." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What?" "She's a mechanic. She was helping me fix my car." The heart emoji was because I was grateful for her help, not because we're romantically involved. I stared at her, feeling the world tilt on its axis. "But you seemed upset yesterday, distracted." "Because my car was dying and I couldn't afford to fix it. Because I was worried about losing this job if I couldn't get to work reliably." Harper's voice was getting stronger, more confident. "And because my boss had been acting strange for weeks, and I couldn't figure out why." "Harper." "No, let me finish." She held up a hand. "You want to know why I was distracted? Because I've been falling for you for months. Because every morning I look forward to seeing you, and every evening I dread saying goodbye. Because I've been trying to figure out if you feel the same way, or if I'm just imagining the looks and the conversations and the way you say my name." My heart stopped. "You've been falling for me? Completely. Hopelessly. Inappropriately." Harper's laugh was shaky now. "And then yesterday you went cold on me. And today you're replacing me. And I thought I'd imagined everything." "You didn't imagine anything," I whispered. "Then why are you pushing me away?" I looked at this incredible woman who'd just laid her heart bare, and I realized I had a choice. I could keep hiding behind fear and professional boundaries, or I could be brave for once in my life. "Because I'm terrified," I said. "Because I've never felt this way about anyone, and I don't know how to handle it. Because you're kind and beautiful, and you make me feel things I didn't think I was capable of feeling." Harper's expression softened. "Alyssa, I've been falling for you too," I said in a rush, "for months. And when I saw that Instagram story, I panicked. I thought I'd been reading everything wrong. I thought you belonged to someone else." "I don't belong to anyone else," Harper said quietly. "But I'd like to belong to you." The words hung in the air between us, full of possibility and promise, and everything I'd been too scared to hope for. "What do we do now?" I asked. Harper smiled, the first real smile I'd seen from her all day. "Now you call your assistant and tell him you've changed your mind about the new driver." I called Marcus before we'd even left the curb. "Cancel the new driver," I said without preamble. "What?" "Alyssa, what's going on?" "Just cancel it. Harper stays." There was a pause. Did something happen? I looked at Harper, who was watching me with a mixture of hope and amusement. You could say that, I said. I'll explain later. Okay. But the company might charge a cancellation fee. I don't care about the fee, Marcus. Just fix it. I hung up and looked at Harper. Done. Just like that? Just like that. But Harper wasn't smiling anymore. She was studying my face with an intensity that made my stomach flutter. Alyssa, she said carefully. What exactly are we doing here? It was a fair question. One I wasn't sure I had an answer to. I don't know, I admitted. I've never done this before. Done what? Fallen for someone I work with. Fallen for someone, period. Harper's eyebrows rose. Period? Heat flooded my cheeks. I mean, I've dated, but nothing serious. Nothing that felt like what? Like this. The words hung between us, heavy with implication. Harper was quiet for a long moment, then put the car in drive. We should probably get you home, she said. And then we should talk. Really talk. The drive to my apartment was charged with a different kind of tension than before. Not the uncomfortable distance of the past 2 days, but anticipation, possibility, the electric feeling of standing on the edge of something life-changing. When we pulled up to my building, Harper turned off the engine. Can I come up? She asked. My heart hammered against my ribs. Yes. We rode the elevator to the 42nd floor in silence. I was hyper-aware of Harper beside me. The way she smelled like vanilla and something clean. The way she kept glancing at me like she couldn't quite believe this was happening. I unlocked my apartment door with shaking hands. Wow, Harper said, stepping inside. This is pretentious? I was going to say beautiful. My apartment was beautiful, in a cold, magazine-perfect way. All clean lines and expensive furniture and not a single personal touch that might reveal who I actually was. It doesn't feel like you, Harper said, walking to the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city. What do you mean? It's too perfect, too controlled. She turned to face me. Where are your books, your photos, the things that make you happy? I looked around my apartment as if seeing it for the first time. She was right. It looked like a hotel room, beautiful but sterile. I don't really have hobbies, I said. Or photos. Everyone has something that makes them happy. Work makes me happy. Harper gave me a look that suggested she didn't believe that for a second. What about you? I asked, deflecting. What makes you happy? Books, old movies, working on cars with my hands. She paused. Driving you around the city and pretending I don't notice when you smile at something on your phone. My breath caught. You notice that? I notice everything about you, Alyssa. The way you bite your lip when you're thinking. How you always check your reflection in the window before getting out of the car. The fact that you've never once been rude to a server or a doorman, even when you're having the worst day. You've been watching me, constantly. Harper stepped closer. The question is, what are we going to do about it? I stared at her. This woman who saw me more clearly than I saw myself, who'd been brave enough to tell me how she felt while I'd been hiding behind professional boundaries and wounded pride. I don't know the rules, I said quietly. What rules? For this. For whatever this is. I've spent my entire adult life building walls, keeping people at a distance. I don't know how to let someone in. Harper moved closer, until she was standing just a few feet away. There are no rules, Alyssa, just two people who care about each other. Figuring it out as they go. What if I'm terrible at it? What if I hurt you? What if you don't? The simple question hung in the air between us. What if I didn't hurt her? What if this thing between us was real and good and worth the risk? I'm scared, I admitted. Of what? Of wanting this too much. Of needing you too much. I took a shaky breath. Of losing you. Harper's expression softened. Alyssa, you're not going to lose me. Not unless you push me away again. I might. Push you away, I mean. It's what I do when things get complicated. Then I'll push back. The certainty in her voice made something tight in my chest loosen. You say that now, I said. But you don't know what I'm like, really like. I'm demanding and controlling, and I work too much, and I don't know how to be in a relationship. You're also brilliant and funny and more caring than you want people to know. Harper stepped closer. You bring me coffee when you think I look tired. You remember the names of my favorite books. You ask about my day like you actually care about the answer. I do care. I know. That's what I'm trying to tell you. We stood there looking at each other, the weight of months of unspoken feelings hanging between us. So what now? I asked. Now we try, we take it slow, figure it out together. And when you get scared and try to push me away, I'll remind you that some things are worth fighting for. And if it doesn't work, if we're too different, or the professional thing gets complicated, or... Harper silenced me by stepping forward and taking my hands in hers. Alyssa, she said gently. Stop borrowing trouble from tomorrow. Can we just focus on right now? Right now. Harper's hands in mine, her green eyes looking at me like I was something precious. The feeling that for the first time in my life, I was exactly where I belonged. Right now sounds good, I said. Harper smiled, and it was like the sun coming out after a storm. Good. Because I have a confession to make. What? I've been wanting to kiss you for months. My heart stopped. You have? Since the second week. You were on a conference call, and you were arguing with someone about quarterly projections, and you got this fierce look on your face. And I thought, I am in so much trouble. I laughed, surprising myself. The second week? What about you? When did you know? I thought about it. The day you brought me coffee without being asked. You said it was a lucky guess, but I knew you'd been paying attention. Really paying attention. And I realized I wanted you to keep paying attention forever. Forever is a long time. Is it too long? Harper's smile was soft and sure. Not nearly long enough. She leaned closer, and I could feel her breath against my lips. Alyssa? Yes? Can I kiss you now? Instead of answering, I closed the distance between us. The kiss was soft at first, tentative. Like we were both afraid this might be a dream we'd wake up from. But then Harper's hands found my face. And I melted into her. And suddenly, nothing else mattered. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. Wow, Harper whispered. Yeah, wow. We stood there holding each other, and for the first time in my life, I felt completely, perfectly at peace. So? Harper said eventually. What do we do now? I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in years. Now we order takeout and you tell me about all the books I should be reading. And tomorrow you pick me up at 6:47 a.m. and we figure out the rest as we go. I like that plan. Good, I said, kissing her again. Because I'm not letting you go anywhere. 3 months later, I was standing in my office at 5:30 p.m., staring out at the city lights, and marveling at how much had changed. The Hartwell acquisition had gone through, the Morrison account had expanded. I'd just been featured on the cover of Forbes as one of the top female executives under 40. But none of that mattered as much as the text message on my phone. Harper. Running 5 minutes late. Traffic on 5th is brutal, miss you. Me. Miss you too. Take your time. 6 months ago, I would have been irritated by the delay. Now, I just smiled and used the extra time to finish reviewing contracts. My relationship with Harper had been the best-kept secret on Wall Street. We'd been careful. No public displays of affection, no obvious changes in our professional dynamic. To the outside world, she was still my driver, and I was still the ice queen of finance. But behind closed doors, everything had changed. Harper had moved in with me 2 weeks ago. My sterile apartment now had books scattered on the coffee table, plants on the windowsills, and photos of us together tucked discreetly on my nightstand. It felt like a home for the first time in my life. Ms. Crane? Marcus appeared in my doorway. Your car's here. Thank you, Marcus. Have a good weekend. You too. And Alyssa. He paused at the door. I'm glad you figured it out. I smiled. Me too. Downstairs, Harper was waiting by the car, and my heart did the same little skip it had been doing for months. She was wearing dark jeans and a leather jacket, her hair loose around her shoulders, beautiful and confident and mine. Sorry I'm late, she said, opening the door for me. It's fine, I said, but instead of getting into the back seat, I paused. Actually, can I sit up front today? Harper's eyebrows rose, Feeling rebellious, Ms. Crane? Something like that. I slid into the passenger seat and Harper got behind the wheel, grinning. This is new, she said. I thought it was time to break some rules. We'd been careful for months, professional in public, personal in private, but lately I'd been feeling restless. Tired of hiding. Tired of pretending that Harper was just my driver when she was so much more. How was your day? Harper asked as we pulled into traffic. Good. The Forbes interview went well. They want to do a follow-up piece next month. That's amazing. I'm proud of you. The simple words made my chest warm. Harper had been my biggest supporter through the interview process, helping me practice answers and reminding me to eat when I got too nervous. What about you? How was your day off? Productive. I finished the book you recommended, did some grocery shopping, and may have spent an embarrassing amount of time looking at apartments. My heart skipped. Apartments? For Mel and Sarah. They're thinking about moving to the city. Oh. I tried to hide my disappointment. For a moment, I'd thought she was looking for her own place. That maybe she was getting tired of living with me. Harper glanced over and caught my expression. Hey, what's wrong? Nothing. I just thought. Never mind. Alyssa. Harper's voice was gentle but firm. Talk to me. I sighed. I thought you were looking for your own apartment. That maybe you wanted some space. Harper pulled over to the curb and put the car in park, then turned to face me. Are you serious right now? I don't know. Maybe. We've been living together for 2 weeks, and I know it's a big adjustment. Alyssa. Harper reached over and took my hand. I love living with you. I love waking up next to you every morning and falling asleep in your arms every night. I love that you leave little notes in my lunch and that you've started reading the books I recommend. You do? I do. And if you're having second thoughts... I'm not, I said quickly. I love living with you too. I love everything about us. I've never done this before. The whole domestic thing. I don't know if I'm doing it right. Harper's smile was soft and understanding. There is no right way, Alyssa. There's just our way. She leaned over and kissed me, soft and sweet, and I felt some of the tension leave my shoulders. Besides, she said against my lips, you're doing better than you think. You actually cooked dinner last night. I heated up takeout. You transferred it to real plates. That counts. I laughed, feeling lighter. I love you. I love you too. We sat there for a moment, just looking at each other, and I marveled at how natural this felt. How right. So, Harper said eventually, what do you want to do tonight? We could order in, watch a movie. Actually, I said, I have a better idea. Yeah? I looked around at the busy street, at the people walking by, at the world that had no idea that Alyssa Crane, the ice queen of Wall Street, was head over heels in love with her driver. Let's go somewhere, I said. Where? I don't care. Anywhere. I just want to be with you. Harper's smile was brilliant. I know just the place. She pulled back into traffic, and we drove through the city as the sun set behind the skyscrapers. Harper took us to a small park overlooking the river, a place I'd never been despite living in the city for years. We parked and got out, walking hand in hand to a bench that faced the water. The city lights were starting to twinkle in the gathering darkness, and the air was crisp with the promise of autumn. This is beautiful, I said. I used to come here when I first moved to the city, Harper said, when I was feeling overwhelmed or homesick. It helped me remember that there was beauty here. Even in all the chaos, I squeezed her hand. Thank you for sharing it with me. Thank you for letting me share everything with you. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the boats on the river and the people walking by. A few couples passed us, holding hands, stealing kisses, living their lives openly and without fear. Harper? I said suddenly. Yeah? I want to tell people about us. Harper turned to look at me. Are you sure? I'm tired of hiding, tired of pretending you're just my driver when you're the most important person in my life. What about work, the complications? I'd been thinking about this for weeks. I'll transfer you to a different department, or we'll figure out a way to make it work. I don't care about the complications anymore. Alyssa, I love you, I said, turning to face her fully, and I want the world to know it. Harper's eyes were bright with unshed tears. I love you too. So much. So we'll figure it out? We'll figure it out. I leaned over and kissed her, right there on the bench, in full view of anyone who might be watching. And for the first time in my life, I didn't care who saw. When we broke apart, Harper was grinning. What? I asked. I just never thought I'd see the day when Alyssa Crane would make out with her driver in public. Former driver, I corrected. Current girlfriend. Future. I trailed off, suddenly shy. Future what? Harper asked softly. I don't know yet. But something permanent. Harper's smile was soft and sure. I liked the sound of that. We drove home as the city came alive around us, and I realized that this was what happiness felt like. Not the cold satisfaction of closing a deal or the brief high of professional success, but this warm, steady feeling of being exactly where I belonged. When we pulled into the garage of my building, Harper turned off the engine but didn't move to get out. What is it? I asked. I just want to remember this moment, she said. The night you decided to stop hiding. The night we decided to stop hiding, I corrected. The night we decided to stop hiding, she agreed. I leaned over and kissed her again, there in the front seat of the car where it all began. Where I'd first noticed the way she smiled. Where I'd fallen in love without even realizing it. Come on, I said eventually. Let's go home. Home, Harper repeated, like she was testing the word. I like how that sounds. Good, I said, taking her hand as we walked toward the elevator. Because you're stuck with me now. Promise? Promise. 6 months later, Harper and I were featured in the business section of the Times. Not for a scandal, but for the innovative employee partnership program we'd developed together. She'd started her own consulting firm, helping executives build better relationships with their staff, and I'd been her first client. The article called us an unlikely partnership that's changing the way Wall Street thinks about workplace relationships. They had no idea how right they were, but the best part wasn't the professional success or the public recognition. It was the quiet moments, the morning coffee, the evening conversations, the way Harper still brought me lunch when I worked too late, and the way I still got butterflies when she smiled at me across a room. It was the life we'd built together, one honest conversation at a time. And it all started in the back seat of a black Mercedes, with a woman who saw through my walls and decided I was worth the wait.